Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my update to my Naturia Yugioh deck profile for January 2021. I wanted to start off the new year with one of my favorite, I would say definitely most updated deck throughout my entire channel, and that is the Naturia deck. It's definitely one of my favorite decks. I've loved this deck since I ever, first got back into Yu-Gi-Oh, which was back in, 2011. It's definitely been a long time since, I started up the channel and, overall just, started making deck profiles on the channel as a whole. But it's a really, really fun deck. For those of you that aren't familiar with the deck, the whole focus of it are to summon out all the different Naturia synchros, the fusion monsters, and also just work with the monster effects we have in the main deck to either lock down your opponent's plays or give us resources for all of our different extra deck summonings. And with Master Rule 5, we definitely have a stronger version of the deck since we're not limited to link summons and getting out all the other different synchro monsters we have in the deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the monsters in the main deck, before we get to the main focus, which are the plant and insect monsters, I run 3 Naturia Cliff. I definitely love running Cliff in all of my different Naturia decks. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Naturia monster from your deck and face up attack position. So you can even special summon Naturia Cliff off of Naturia Cliff, going into each individual Naturia Cliff, and then also leave off on 1 additional monster. So your opponent will definitely have a lot of resources to go through with this card before you can summon out your last card and give you just more and more plays to work off of. And also, just a reminder, this card does miss timing if you were to try and use it for a synchro or any other extra deck summoning. So it has to be sent from the field to the graveyard, basically being destroyed by battle or card effects. So you're basically still set up with plenty of a good wall monster with this one to protect you against your opponent. For more resources and also being able to shuffle back cards like Naturia Cliff, I also run 3 Naturia Marin. When this card's normal summon, you can send 1 Naturia monster from your deck to the graveyard, and once per turn, you can target 2 Naturia monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them both into the deck, and then draw 1 card. So like I said, you have recycle power with your Marin. If your opponent's going to attack into one of your Cliffs, and then you just want to have another one set up in the graveyard to go for, you can special summon out Naturia Marin off of that 1 Cliff, and then have the recycle power back into the deck. So then if you draw into another Cliff, you have both of the other ones back in the main deck ready to use again for its destruction special summon power. So Marin is just really, really good for that overall setup. For some of the other Naturia plant monsters that I run, I also run 3 Naturia Pumpkin. When this card is normal summon, if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon 1 Naturia monster from your hand. So I definitely do like to rely on Pumpkin for all the special summons from the extra deck, just being able to easily summon out Naturia Beast by summoning out a level 1 tuner, or Naturia Barkion by summoning out a level 2 tuner onto the field and having the play right then and there for our summon. You're not limited to the level of what the Naturia monster can be as well, so you can summon out cards like Naturia Bamboo Shoot, but you won't get the effect of that monster, so I prefer to obviously save it for the tribute play and focus on just summoning out the tuners or other monsters onto the field to use with Naturia Pumpkin. For some of the plant tuners that I run in the deck, I also run 3 Naturia Cherries. I focused on the plant monsters being the main go-to tuners in the deck, just because they have the easiest special summon power with Naturia Cherries. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard by your opponent's card, including battle or card effect, or by being destroyed, you can special summon up to 2 Naturia Cherries from your deck and face down defense position. It's just more resources. The biggest weakness, and I've said this through all of my Naturia deck profiles, is when you open up 2 cherries in your hand. Just having the one option of having a leftover cherry in your hand to special summon off of Naturia Pumpkin, and then setting the one other cherry just for it to be destroyed, and then just give you 1 cherry resource. If you open up with just the 1 cherry in your hand, your opponent will at least destroy it and give you 2 more cherries on the field, which then you can use for the resource of some of your other plays. For the last of the tuners, I also run 2 Naturia Cosmo Beat, with this one being your basically go-to one for your Naturia Barkion setup. So you would use Pumpkin with this card to summon out Barkion, and Pumpkin and Cherries to summon out Naturia Beast. Those are your main go-to plays. And with this one, when your opponent normal summons or sets a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. So opening this card up early game also gives you access to just summoning this card out and then having a monster ready to tribute for Bamboo Shoot on your next turn before you even had your first normal summon. As long as your opponent doesn't, destroy this card still during their first go-to turn, you have that option available to you. I'm running only 2 Cosmo Beat though. Other than that, your opponent has to normal summon or set. So if they special summon a monster, you're not really doing much with this this card in your hand. You just have to rely on that normal summon play to fully use this card. For some of the lower numbers for the plant monsters, I'm running 1 Naturia Bamboo Shoot. The reason I dropped this card down to 1, and if you want to raise the numbers of this card in this deck, feel free to basically take out any other Naturia ratios. You can drop the number of pumpkins down to 2, you can drop the numbers of Marin down to 2, and add in additional Bamboo Shoots for each spot you have there, or you can try and take out some of the insect lineup that I'm running as well, but with the number of insects being shorter to the number of plant monsters, to work better with our Naturia Sacred Tree, I would suggest going for the plant monsters first before the insect monsters. But with Naturia Bamboo Shoot, if this card is tribute summoned by tributing a Naturia monster while this card remains face up on the field, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards. So with it, it's a great setup card for sure. The biggest thing that made me decide just to run 1 this time around for the play testing is the fact that depending on the opponent you're going up against, they may solely rely on spell cards or trap cards depending on what deck you're going up against, especially against a Burning Abyss player. They'll mostly run traps, and other setup decks could normally just run spells and not any traps at all, which you will completely lock them out of this card, but they have plenty of other special summoning methods with a good number of decks we have in the game right now. They basically get over your Naturia monster of only 2,000 attack, while other cards like Naturia Beast and Barkion have a little higher attack and better ways for setting up the negation of those cards altogether. So once again, you're free to add in more copies of this card. Just with all the play styles I've run with this, opening up this card early game, especially needing that tribute summon to fully benefit, is a big investment for sure. And if they somehow destroy this card, then you've lost your main go-to investment of the summon on the field. For the insect monsters that I run in the deck, I also run 2 Naturia Fruit Fly. All face-up monsters your opponent control lose 300 attack and defense for each face-up Naturia monster you control. And once per turn, you can select 1 face-up monster your opponent controls with 0 defense and take control of it until the end phase. So with this card, obviously against your opponent's Link monsters, it's not going to do anything, aside from the fact that it will lower the attack still, which is a great plus for sure. But having the option, if your opponent does have a monster with low defense on the field, to take that resource and use as your own for some extra deck plays is a big benefit for sure. And the fact that you can just easily, switch out Naturia Fruit Fly on the field with your other plant Naturia monsters using Sacred Tree is basically a big benefit from that for sure. For some of the other Naturia insect monsters, I also run 2 Naturia Mantis. When your opponent normal summons a monster, you can send 1 Naturia monster from your hand to the graveyard to destroy that monster. It doesn't negate the summon, but it does stop the normal summon, taking away a resource on the field. The 1 Naturia monster I'm not running in the deck, which if you did want to run that monster, is Naturia Butterfly, being a level 3 tuner monster, and also an insect if you want to run that card instead of Naturia Mantis, just to have an additional tuner slot in the deck. That is always an option as well. Just player preference at that point, depending on which one you wanted to take out and run. So if you wanted to run Naturia Butterfly, I would just suggest taking out the 2 Mantis. You can even, if you just want to take out 1 Mantis, put 1 Butterfly in for that spot. Or if you wanted to add in more Bamboo Shoot, this could be another spot to at least add in a second copy and take out the 1 Mantis. For the rest of the Naturia insect monsters and the rest of the monsters for the main deck, I also run 2 Naturia Dragonfly. This card cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster that has 2,000 or more attack. This card gains 200 attack for each Naturia monster in your graveyard, so it's a power boost card. We definitely do run a lot of Naturia monsters, and just being able to go through those cards quite quickly with Naturia Sacred Tree and all of your extra deck summoning late game, this is a great boss monster for sure. Potentially being to hit up to a plus of 3,800 attack with all of our Naturia monsters in the main deck alone, and also just with the more Naturia monsters we can summon out from the extra deck as well. Even our fusion monster resources makes this a definite scary monster to behold against your opponent, and can swing into a good number of cards after that build up is made. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. Starting off our spells, I run 2 Miracle Synchro Fusion with one of our main boss monsters in the deck being Naturia Exterio, needing a Naturia Beast and Barkion. I don't want to invest that monster on the field. I prefer to use it after those cards have either been destroyed and are set up in the graveyard. So using Miracle Synchro Fusion, you remove from play from your side of the field or your graveyard the fusion materials that are listed on a fusion monster card. That lists a synchro monster as fusion material monster, and special summon that fusion from your extra deck. This special summon is treated as a fusion summon, and if this set card is destroyed by your opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, draw 1 card. So even if you're not going to go for the fusion play, you can at least set this card up as back row, basically making it so your opponent believes that this is a dangerous trap card you're running. They destroy it, and then you get the draw power. If not, you can activate it and go for your fusion play for either one of the Naturia fusion monsters we're running, using our Beast and Barkion for those resources. For more setup in the graveyard as well, I run 2 Foolish Burial Goods. This card will make sense when we go over the traps for Naturia Sacred Tree, having more search power altogether, and also justifying more of the reason why I'm only running the 1 Bamboo Shoot for the search power. With this card, just sending a spell or trap from your deck to the graveyard. Great for that setup, but like I said, we'll go over that more when we get to the traps. I also now, for the 1-ofs for these spells, I run 1 for 1, just the option for cherries onto the field that much faster, giving us the fact that you can have the 1 and still the other 2 set up in the deck, or if you just need that 1 monster out on the field to summon with the additional resources you may have in your hand. I also run 1 Monster Reborn for more resources from the graveyard back onto the field to use, 1 Call by the Grave, and 1 Harpy Feather Duster to finish off the spells for the main deck. This one's great. I've been testing it out a lot, and I definitely like clearing the back row, especially when I either have Naturia Barkion or Beast on the field, and not the correct resource to deal with what my opponent might have set up. If I have Beast and I'm afraid of trap cards especially, this is a great option for sure. But that is it for the spells. We'll now move on to the traps. Best trap for sure in the deck is Naturia Sacred Tree. I've always run 3 of this card since it was released. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you add 1 Naturia card from your deck to your hand, except Naturia Sacred Tree. You can only use 1 of the following effects of Sacred Tree once per turn, and only once that turn. So before we get to the other effects, that's why I am running Foolish Burial Goods in the deck. Just being able to send this card and get a search for any of the Naturia monsters I need, is my basic reason for the 1 Bamboo Shoot. If you succeed with the 1 play and this doesn't give you the game, basically shutting down your opponent's plays, and your opponent somehow gets around this, you need to rethink the strategy you're going for, because there might be a better option in the extra deck for you to summon out than Naturia Bamboo Shoot when dealing with that opponent and their plays they can do. And with Sacred Tree, you can tribute 1 Earth Insect type monster to special summon 1 level 4 lower Earth Plant type monster, or you can tribute 1 Earth Plant type monster to special summon 1 level 4 lower Earth Insect type monster from your deck. Being able to go back and forth from the different monsters we're running in the deck. The only thing that doesn't work with this is obviously Naturia Cliff, but you have plenty of other options with your Plant Naturia monsters or your Insect Naturia monsters to summon out, giving you more and more in the graveyard to either power up your Dragonfly or shuffle back power with your Naturia Marin. And then for the rest of the traps that I run in the deck as well, I run 3 Solemn Strike and the 2 Solemn Judgment. I really do like this lineup, especially if you lock down your opponent with the successful Naturia Bamboo Shoot, and then you have this back row set up. Your opponent will basically not be able to do much. They'll have to invest most of their plays in a monster they can special summon out, or normal summon that can, take out Naturia Bamboo Shoot before they can activate more of their spell and traps. So being able to use these cards to stop those plays is a big plus for sure. Or even just more on the fact with those monster plays, I also run the 3 Infinite Impermanence. Now, once again, I've said it in all the videos just because this is a more difficult card to get access to, but if you don't have Infinite Impermanence, I've tried out cards like Call of the Haunted, Back to the Front, just cards that can special summon more and more resources onto the field, especially for these plays and just the overall setup of your hand trap, stopping your opponent's cards. But you can always try cards like Ash Blossom as well, more of a hand trap to stop your opponent's cards, but still my preferred one to go to, being able to stop a lot of, pesky monster effects on the field that could get around Naturia Bamboo Shoot or Naturia Beast or Barkion. And that's it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 2 Naturia Beast. I definitely want to go big numbers on my main go-to boss monsters in the deck. When this card is face-up on the field, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard to negate the activation of a spell card and destroy it. This is not a once per turn as well. As long as you have the deck to mill, you can easily negate a good amount of your opponent's spell cards they may have. You need 1 Earth Tuner and 1 or more non-Earth Tuners to summon it, which is the majority of the entire main deck. So very, very easy to summon and make use of in this deck for sure. The same goes for Naturia Barkion. I don't make it as much as Beast, but when I'm dealing with an opponent with a heavy trap count, this especially is useful. When this face-up card's on the field, you can banish from play 2 cards in your graveyard to negate the activation of a trap card and destroy it. So you have to get rid of resources in your graveyard, which you can easily set up with Naturia Beast as well. Having both of them on the field for sure is a big plus for sure altogether. But once again, I like 2 and 2 just because if I have the resources and I invest in them in, let's say, Naturia Exterio after they're in the graveyard, I still would have the option to go into more of them later on with the rest of my extra deck. For the other synchros, I run 1 Yugioh Guardian, limited to Earth Tuners, but still a big powerhouse in this deck for sure. Same with Black Rose Dragon, especially not just with the destruction effect, but able to use the plant banish effect quite easily in this deck altogether. And also using one Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. I like it just to go into the option with Black Rose or even any of our level 6 Synchros in the deck. And one Leo, the Keeper of the Sacred Tree. Another big boss monster that I make in the deck just for its protection that this face-up card cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects except during the main phase 2. So having this, being able to attack for some pretty big numbers with this, and also Crystal Wing are some of my ideal ones to go into for sure. And for the fusion monsters, I run one Naturia Yugioh with this one during either player's turn. When a card or effect is activated that targets exactly one card on the field and no other cards, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation if you do destroy that card. So with this, the more hand resources you have, the more powerhouse of a monster this is for sure. Being able to stop those target cards, while Naturia Yugioh focuses on the spell and traps, being able to remove from play one card from your graveyard and also send the top card of your deck to the graveyard to negate either a spell or trap. But like I said, Miracle Synchro Fusion definitely comes into play when these cards are set up in the graveyard. I don't normally like to use them when they're on the field because they're basically doing their job when they're on the field. These cards are just late game special summons especially, and with the, we're not as limited to Naturia Yugioh with this one, with this one being the summon of just 2 Earth Synchro monsters, which we run a good amount with the Naturia monsters, but also having the option with Leo and also Goyo Guardian in the extra deck. For the Link monsters, I also run one Link Karibo for the Naturia Cherries. If I just have that as my one resource, a lot safer to have one Link Karibo on the field than just one Naturia Cherry if they don't have the special summon option to go into more cherries. Also one Mrs. Radiant, one Asa, the Earth Charmer Immovable, one Nightmare Cerberus, and one Cross Sheep to finish off the extra deck. If you wanted to try Nightmare Cerberus or Unicorn instead of the Cross Sheep, that's always an option as well. But as for your main go-to plays, like I spoke of before, you have plenty of special summon options, and that's what makes this deck so much fun, because the main goal of all your different plays can differ game to game. If you summon out, let's say, your Naturia Cherries, and your opponent destroys the one Cherries, giving you the other 2 Cherries to summon out, if they don't have any other resource to destroy these cards next turn, you can flip up these cards, summon out your Naturia Pumpkin. If your opponent has a monster on the field, when this card is summoned, you can special summon another Naturia from your hand. If it's a card like Naturia Fruit Fly, you're going to lower the attack of your opponent's monsters that much more quickly because of all the different Naturias you have on the field. But given this, you can also then go for a Link 2 play using your Naturia Fruit Fly and your Cherries, summoning out your Mrs. Radiant, which would boost the attack of all your Earth monsters on the field. Then you can use Naturia, Cherries, and Pumpkin to then summon out your Naturia Beasts, which would be boosted by your Mrs. Radiant, making it all the more scarier of a synchro monster on the field, which then if your opponent takes out the Mrs. Radiant, it gives you recycle power for another card in your graveyard. If you just wanted to, let's say, stick to the one cherry, or let's say your opponent destroys the cherry and gives you the 2 on the field, and you summon out the pumpkin, but you don't have the target for the pumpkin on the field, you can synchro summon into your level 5 Naturia Beast using the pumpkin, but also then going one step further, setting up more resources in your graveyard, go for the Naturia Barkion play, which would then allow you to have the quicker setup for your synchro play. If, let's say, you don't have enough cards in the graveyard to rely fully on the Barkion Banish, because you don't want to banish your entire Earth monster resources in the graveyard, you can then go for the Miracle Synchro Fusion play, which, like I said, only do it if you're confident in the summon you're going to do, and then either go for your Naturia Yugioh or your Exterio, having both the options, just knowing what you're going to play against with your opponent also. And then as for the other plays that I've mentioned before, you have the option with your Cosmo Beat to special summon out during your opponent's turn. And if you're able to either then send the Foolish Burial Goods activation and send your Sacred Tree to the graveyard, giving you the search for your Naturia Bamboo Shoot that much easier. Or if you get lucky and draw this card, you can then tribute out the Cosmo Beat, summoning this card out. And remember, unless your opponent stops the summon of this card, they won't be able to activate anything. Let's say they have Torrential Tribute on the field. As soon as this card hits the field, your opponent can activate Spell and Traps, because they can't activate Torrential Tribute in response to this card. It'll be on the field, and your opponent can't use Spell or Traps. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, this is one of my favorite decks. I'm always glad to do an update for it. And I was definitely glad to, like I said, start off the year with one of my favorite decks. I can't wait to do more and more this year with all the new support we'll have coming out and all the updates I plan to do as well. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.